Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about nasal polyp. Let's begin topic. So what is nasal polyp? So nasal polyp. What is nasal polyp? So they are the edematous mass. They are the edematous masses which arises from the mucosa nasal, which arises from nasal mucosa. So how the nasal mucosa, if we talk about, this is our nasal cavity, and it is there we have different paranasal sinuses. This is maxillary sinus, and we have frontal sinus, and we have multiple ethmoidal sinus. So we know nasal mucosa and those paranasal sinuses are covered by pseudo stratified ciliated columnar epithelium cells. So when this mucosa is inflamed, then it starts to grow, so once, if we talk about this, let us talk about this maxillary sinus. When maxillary sinus undergoes chronic inflammation, then the mucosa of this maxillary sinus starts to grow, and it starts to come out from the ostium. And because of negative middle ear pressure that is generated during inspiration, and air flow current which is in posterior direction, and posterior ciliated beating of the cilia, and the posterior nasal cavity is wider. Posterior nasal cavity is wider, so this mass starts to grow posteriorly and forms antrochoanal polyp. So any polyp which arises from the maxillary sinus will give rise to antrochoanal polyp. That means the polyp which arises from the antral, that is maxillary antrum, it arises from the antrum and grow toward choana. So this polyp has three parts. So what are they? One is antral part, which is this is antral part, and the next is nasal part. This is nasal part, and the next is choana part, and this is choanal part. So it arises from the antral and grows in the nasal cavity and grows posteriorly towards choana due to posterior ciliary beating and posterior flow of air current. Posterior flow of air current, and it has three parts. That is antral part, it is globular in shape. Nasal part, it grows in the nasal cavity, so it is flat in shape, and choana, it grows posteriorly towards choana. So this is all about nasal polyp that arises from the maxillary sinus. And we also have, this is our maxillary sinus polyp, and now next we will be talking about ethmoidal polyp. So ethmoidal polyps, any masses which grow in the ethmoidal sinuses will give rise to ethmoidal polyp. So let me make you clear what are the differences of antrochoanal polyp and ethmoidal polyp. Let's talk the difference of antrochoanal polyp and ethmoidal polyp. It is quite interesting. So this is the maxillary sinus. As we know, there are two common etiology for both of the polyp. One is due to infection, most commonly bacterial infection, and next is due to allergens or allergy. So maxillary sinus ostium is quite larger in caliber. So if there is any allergens that enter the maxillary sinus due to the beating of the cilia, it will exclude it out, while if any allergens enter the ethmoidal sinus, it gets trapped inside it and it undergoes chronic inflammations of the ethmoidal sinus mucosa. That means allergens when enters the ethmoidal sinus, allergen when enters the ethmoidal paranasal sinus, it gets trapped there and undergoes chronic inflammatory changes therein, giving rise to ethmoidal polyp. So as it is caused by allergen, so ethmoidal polyp, this allergen enters bilateral paranasal sinus, so this polyp is seen bilaterally, while bacterial infection is most commonly seen in maxillary sinus and it gives rise to antrochoanal polyp. So antrochoanal polyp site of origin is maxillary sinus, whereas ethmoidal polyp site of origin is ethmoidal sinus. Ethmoidal sinus is most susceptible to allergy, so etiology is allergy. So etiology is bacterial infection in antrochoanal polyp, and this infection is mostly seen in older children, while adults are highly susceptible to rhinitis, allergic rhinitis. So there are multiple ethmoidal ear cells. As we know, there are multiple ethmoidal ear cells. So ethmoidal polyp number is multiple, and that look like bunch of grapes appearance, while it is unilateral polyp and it is single in number, and it grows posteriorly due to posterior ear current and negative ear pressure and towards choana, and it grows anteriorly due to effect of gravity, So thank you everyone, keep watching my video. This is all about nasal polyp, and this is about ethmoidal polyp, and this is all about antrochoanal polyp. Thank you all.